Vice President of Campaign Optimization, Marketing Capability, and Change with Citibank. Satya, wonderful to have you with us. Satya helps deliver transformational roadmaps and program delivery, pioneering optimal digital solutions and deliver CX best practices for Citibank. A practitioner who speaks both languages of CMO and CIO and leads conversations in strategy, execution, and delivery. Satya, it's a real pleasure and privilege to have you with us. We are all very much looking forward to your presentation today.
Thank you, Joe. Hopefully, people are able to see my screen. Just a bit of housekeeping for me. Great.
Looks great.
So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you are. It's very early morning for me here in Sydney, just past midnight. Wonderful to be here, really delighted to talk about. The topic for discussion today is a customer's demand a digital experience. So without wasting too much of time, let's really kick into it. I guess as leaders within our organizations, whether we are wearing a CMO hat, a CIO hat, or basically a CXO, we relatively know the journey and the path that we are taking to. We know where we are aiming for, and we all are aiming for the North Star. The challenge that we've got is we just don't know how to get there from a people, process, data, and technology. The presentation today, I'll walk you through, okay, so how do we actually aim for the North Star? What exactly is the North Star from a digital experience perspective? And I'll give you a few pointers and tips as to how you can aim to reach that North Star through people, process, data, technology, and system. So before we really go into, let's take a step backwards before we take a step forward to really understand what the current challenges are. And these challenges are not predominantly only restricted to banking, but these challenges are across all industries, whether you're a retail, whether you're in banking, whether you're in telco, or whether you're in airlines. So let's look at all these challenges one by one and navigate that through. So the first challenge that we've got today is fractured interactions with customers and processes. And what that basically means is that, and why is that a problem, is there has been an extreme focus. You know, we've always been hearing about organizations saying organizations exist in silos. So what's happened here is that there's an extreme focus on channel and product, as a result of which what we have disregarded is the integration between business processes. And because organizations exist in silos, over a period of time, different business units have added their own stack. And what that has meant is that they've got duplication of work, they've got insufficient teams which are discoordinated, they've got monolithic architectures that they've built across, and that leads to fragmented CX. The second part is the lack of customer insights. We are in this data world where we've become very, very data rich, but at the same time, we've become very, very information poor. We are unable to produce customized strategies to basically produce a segment of one concept. And what that leads to is poor customer adoption because of primitive customer communication frameworks that we have in place. The third challenge that we are facing is we are all at the start of the automation journey. And what that basically means is that we are moving away in marketing terminology from mass marketing into cognitive marketing, or we are working in the fourth industrial revolution where you have parallel existence of man and machine. So you have new channels like voice, chatbots, robotic process automation, contextual commerce. They have to be implemented. And I don't think so any organization could say that we've actually nailed it. We are the utopian of it. So everyone is at the start of this intelligent automation journey. They're looking at artificial intelligence, virtual reality, machine learning, artificial intelligence, beacon, location-based services. So there's no one who's mastered it. So everyone's actually just navigating their way through what's the best way of doing it. Some are starting, some are midway, but no one's actually reached the utopian. The last point is a challenge for all organizations is navigating the CX technology landscape. What that means is that if you follow Scott Brincher, there are about 8,000 plus solutions available in the marketing technology luminoscape. It's a spider web of interconnected systems and capabilities. The challenge is, how do you actually cut through the noise and select the right technology that is best for your engagement? So you as an organization could be looking at a customer life cycle where you're more involved in onboarding a customer, then growing a customer, retaining a customer, and winning back a customer. If you're an organization which is focused on a B2B sector, you're more interested in basically how do you manage your suspect and your prospects, or your lead management system. So how do you actually navigate your suspects to a prospect, from a prospect to a customer, and then you start looking to give them from transactional messages to behavioral messages, or informational messages to retention messages, and how do you actually grow them through the pipeline? So what's the technology that you need to know? Those are the challenges that you've got. Now, those are the challenges that when you look from an organizational lens, but really what is driving these challenges? At the bottom of the whole thing, what's driving is the customer. What's happening from a customer's perspective is customers actually getting more informed, they're getting more enriched, and they're actually very demanding. And the paradigm shift that's happening in the customer's mind, which was not happening 10, 20 years ago, because again, we've operated in product silos, is that they are not comparing a bank with a bank. They're not comparing a product with a product. They're actually comparing experiences that they get out of an organization, experiences which are easy, experiences which are instant, and experiences which are seamless. So the semantics that's basically working through what the customer is driving or what the customer wants, and how organizations are playing a catch up. So the customer is saying, organizations, I need an enhanced customer interaction. And how the banks or organizations are responding to that is they're thinking, okay, how do I provide that enhanced customer interaction through a truly multi or an omni-channel experience? How do I focus just not on interaction, but on transaction? Rather than transaction, how do I face on interaction? So it's like we're moving away from linear monologues to both ways dialogue. And how do I actually start looking at the new ways of interact with customers? You have more than 20 plus channels to basically communicate with the customer. And how do I make that happen? From a customer perspective, again, the customer is saying you need to be insight-led, provide insight-led customer experience. From an organizational perspective, what it's looking at is how do I provide a faster turnaround time? How do I look at conversational banking? How do I provide personalization at scale? The next point, the customer is saying, how do you basically have high business processes? And what that means for an organization is that the customer does not really care that you are in silos. The customer does not understand you've got sophisticated technology, you've got legacy system, and how do you actually get your back end, your middle end and front end to talk with each other? How do you know your customer, and how do you provide a seamless onboarding for a customer? That's what the customer is interested in. Customers talking about smart and intelligent banking, and what that means is, okay, organizations, how do you actually go through the path of being data driven, and you're implementing the capabilities of artificial intelligence, machine learning, voice processing, and your IVR system to manage the telephony ways of communicating and managing that and orchestrating that with the customer. So having that backdrop understanding, let's try to look what's happening in the banking landscape, and I'll try to be a bit more focused in Australia, what is happening in Australia, and take it from there from an Australian perspective. So I guess one of the things that's happening in banking in general globally is reputation in banking has been tarnished. Customers are feeling a bit dissatisfied. The legacy behaviors in the banking industry is currently being challenged. You've got new regulations coming in place. You've got changing preferences from a customer's perspective, and you've got emerging technology. At the same time, trust is a big question, and trust needs to be earned. It needs to be tangible. It needs to be believable. It needs to be measurable. Where banking organizations globally are struggling with the trust factor. You will see that a lot of customers will say, I don't trust my bank. And there are reasons for that. So that's where the biggest challenge is faced from a customer's perspective The other thing that I want to talk about before really going in more in detail is about COVID and the impact of COVID. In 2021, no discussion can go ahead without actually providing a flavor of COVID. What COVID has done is basically pivoted digital or digital transformation or digitization. It has supercharged it in one way. What organizations wanted to do in years, basically now organizations have been forced to do that in months. But at the same time, for certain organizations, it has been get your foundations right, get back to the basics. How do you actually do more with less? Think about your strategy first, technology second. So from a banking perspective, what we've seen globally is there has been a shift in which how people want to interact with their bank. There has been an increase of banking done through mobile or online as compared to walking into a branch and doing through the physical environment. That basically has provided an opportunity. And what that has provided an opportunity because of a digital acceleration is bringing in new connectivity from a customer's perspective, from an operations perspective, and from a technology perspective. The other thing that has happened in the banking space is open banking. Open banking started in Australia in July last year. It's still in nascent stages. It's just getting rolled out in phases. And what that allows is through API connection, customer information can be shared across different organizations. And that allows more how other organizations who don't have access to customers, as a customer's data, leverage that customer data and tailor make products and offer relevant to that customer. So it's an opportunity for a competitor bank to basically get that customer's information and provide tailor-make services, product to a customer. The third thing that is impacting in the Australian market is the Big Four or the main financial institution. In Australia, 80% of the banking assets are managed by what we call as the Big Four, which is ANZ, Westpac, the CBA, and NAB. 65% of the population has a main financial institution relationship with the Big Four. And as I started in my opening statement about the race to stay ahead with the banking outlook, trust has been a factor. We've had a Royal Commission sometimes last year, as a result of which customers are not satisfied, not happy with their banking institution. This provides an opportunity for tier 2 banks, multinational banks, foreign banks to come in and provide a play. Switching was earlier harder. Switching has become easier because of, hopefully will become easier because of open banking, and it provides a fair play. So those were the opportunities for banking within the Australian domain, but at the same time we see as threats. And when I say threats, it's more from the neobanks and fintechs. And what that is doing is basically they are bringing agile way of working. They don't have legacy organizations. They don't have legacy systems. They have a startup mindset, and from a startup to a scale up, they're basically bringing that. So they're able to plan and win to the agility and digital first capability, and they are the true digital first digital bank within, and they're challenging the legacy banks in terms of how they operate, how they maintain relationship with the customer, the seamless straight through processing and product and services which are more intuitive to meet the customer's needs. So that's pretty much the backdrop in the banking outlook in Australia. Switching flavors and trying to understand digitization and understanding the backdrop of what the challenges are. I'll try to put a CX and a marketing hat on the next few slides. So why, as an organization, should you care? So what does that mean? So I understand open banking, I understand neobanks, I understand these challenges, I understand the digitization, I understand the experience the customer wants, but why should we care? The reason why we should care is because end of the day, we're all moving to a focused economy where it's all about customer centricity. So we are moving away from a channel or a product focus to a customer focus. So in marketing language, customer was the focal point of everything yesterday. The customer would be the focal point today, and the customer would be the focal point tomorrow. The things that are changing in that focal point for the customer is we're trying to humanize the experience. It's all about engagement. It's about customer intimacy. It's about being continuous, connected, and consistent across all different touch points we interact with a customer. So why you should care as an organization? Because if you want to succeed, the differentiator between success and failure is how do we actually navigate the customer landscape? How do we build the customer experience platform? And how do we have strategies and align with the CX perspective? Having that understanding, so that's what our North Star is. So our North Star is the customer, humanizing that experience, looking at that engagement, providing that intimacy. So how do I get there? So earlier I talked about we exactly know what we're aiming for, but we don't know how to get there from a people, process, data, technology, and system. I've got 35 minutes to talk through, so I thought I'll take two different elements and walk you through as examples of what you could do to reach that North Star. So one is the digital experience, and second is creating a future-ready organization. So what exactly is a digital experience? A digital experience is when we move the experience from a physical layout into a digital landscape. And what that means is that that experience then becomes immersive. That experience becomes personal. That experience is when an immediate action is taken when an issue is raised. That is a single point of accountability to ensure the issue is resolved through one person. And that experience is consistent experience across all different touch points that we basically go through. So what does that digital experience look like? Let's try to navigate that through another lens one by one. The first thing that basically comes in that digital experience is hyper-personalized marketing. Hyper-personalized marketing is nothing but the strategic use of data to provide individual customer experiences. And what that means, again, is that organizations have collected a lot of data about the customer. But how do we actually use that for the customer's advantage? So the customer is saying that you've collected a lot of data about me, so you know a lot of information about me. What you need to do is you need to reach out to me with recommendations of what my next best product should be, what my next action should be. And once you've done that, you should be able to deliver that experience. And you should be able to deliver that at speed, at scale, and with agility, and try to get it right the first time that you do it. So there's no opportunity to get some retake. So that's the first digital quadrant for digital experience, is hyper-personalized marketing. The second thing that you look at digital experience is how do you integrate all different touch points. Today, so again, I'll take a step backwards. When we had mass marketing, we predominantly had a lot of above the line marketing. Then we went into an era of analytical marketing. We had about 5 or 6 different channels. So you had email, you had SMS, you had direct mail, you had telemarketing. Now in the age of cognitive marketing, you've got about 20 plus different channels. And what's happening is that we've always focused on an approach of multi-channel, whereas we now need to focus on, if we are looking at a digital experience, in an omni-channel way. And what exactly is omni-channel? Is when you orchestrate a connected CX by creating a view of the customer as an individual which draws from the past and present data in real time. So if I could simplify that in very simple language, what that means is that the output from one channel becomes the input of consumption into another channel. And when an offer or any service is performed or taken in one channel, all the other channels come to know about that in real time. And accordingly, the offer is either withdrawn from the other channels if it has been consumed in the other channel. So how technology plays an important role in that, and how you can actually accelerate that digital experience, is paramount to get that right. The next quadrant in trying to get that experience, a digital experience, aiming for the North Star, is focusing on the E rather than the P. And again, I'll draw your attention back to Philip Kotler, a well-known author in marketing. And when they were talking about marketing, they were talking about product, place, price, and promotion. Whereas now the shift is gone on the E, and the E is all about the engagement, the experience, the emotion, and the exclusivity. And what is shifting is that rather than focusing on price, you start focusing on value. The focus now is not on the brand, but it's more on a customer journey-led narrative. Rather than having fragmented physical presence, you're looking at integrated digital presence. The fourth thing that you look at digital experience is accessibility, and accessibility is more around collaboration with the customer, shareability. What that means is a customer should have the ability to search for a product anywhere, buy a product in any other channel, return a product in another channel, or fulfill that the consumption in another channel. So how do you actually manage the buy, return, and fulfill across different channels? And again, bring that through hyper-personalized marketing, integrated touch points of omni-channel, and focus on the experience, engagement, emotion, and exclusivity. Last but not the least, to really provide and succeed in providing digital experiences is security and trust. So earlier, 5-10 years ago, when we were talking about security, we meant about physical security of data on servers, security of data between the four walls of an organization. Now what we're looking at is, once you've got the information, it's about how data is collected, how data is stored, and how data is used for marketing and communication perspective. How are we sharing that information with third parties? How do we manage that? That's very important. GDPR, California Act, the rules in Australia around ACMA and ADMA to prevent that. That is fundamental to provide that digital experience. So now that we've navigated through the digital experience, we should be looking at how do we actually create a future-ready organization. And this is more around digital transformation. And when I say this is more around digital transformation, so digital transformation is basically collaboration of different technologies. It's re-examining the current way of doing business, at the same time looking forward for new frontiers of doing business and generating revenue. So how do you actually do your collaboration? How do you do your orchestration for processes? And how do you actually look at integration of different technologies? So when you're looking at collaboration, what that means is, how do different teams come together in decision making? Requirement gathering, assessment, and estimation, is that done by one person? Is that done by one team, or is that done by multiple teams and you have an internal buy-in to do that? And that exactly is the flavor of collaboration. When you're looking at orchestration, it's what's the problem that we're looking at solving, and how are we solving it? What's providing value? What's the value add, and what's the non-value add? Are we embracing the value adds and eliminating the non-value add? And when you're looking at integrated technology, you're looking at, am I exploiting my existing technology? Am I enhancing my existing technology? Am I looking at, I've got multiple technologies trying to do the same thing. We're looking at duplication. Am I able to re-examine that functional overlap? And how am I looking at the real-time convergence of data? Now, the challenge that we've got in that space is that we've got homegrown solutions, and there's inherent limitations in the structure and the capability of homegrown solutions. They're unable to handle newer and even ever-increasing complex data formats. They're unable to integrate with various other systems and tools that we've got. So we have to have a new approach to CX. And if I could describe what that new approach to CX would look like, so traditionally, what we have focused on is always on the technology layer. And when I say about the technology layer, the focus for organizations, bigger organizations, has been on the data layer, on the analytics layer, which is all about centralizing data and decisioning. What we're trying to approach from a CX lens is that you also need to have a business lens. And the business layer talks about process and planning and about activation through the different channels. And what does that do is that it enables your people and process. And in digital transformation, there's a lot of focus on technology and data, whereas in the CX focus in digital transformation, the focus has to be on people and processes. And what that allows to do is that it puts data in motion across any channel for n number of customer journeys. What that allows you to do is how you're able to deliver the capabilities at the speed of the customer. So it's not only about data and analytics, but it's about the planning and process that goes behind the scene to look at customers' needs and meet those needs at rapid speed. So we're coming to the close of my presentation. So again, aiming for the North Star. So now we know what our challenges are. But if you are not only a banking organization, but if you are any organization, if you're looking for the North Star, how do you get there? So if you're an organization or a bank, how do you distinguish yourselves from the alternatives that are available for a customer? So the question that you need to ask yourself is, as a digital savvy customer, why would that customer choose to do business with you? Once they decide to do business with you, what are the key digital capabilities you need to achieve to serve them? And then once you've identified the digital capabilities you need to serve them with, which capabilities do you need to develop and which kind of capabilities you need to outsource or partner with? That is something as an organization, as a CXO, you need to start thinking. This next layer is you need to be customer focused. And what that means is how well as a bank or how well as an organization you really understand the customer's needs. And are you measuring that? And again, when you're measuring that and you know the customer's needs, you can't do everything at once. You have to have a staggered approach. You need to have a phased approach. You need to have a roadmap. And what are those experiences that you need to prioritize? Then you're having a challenge with neobanks and fintechs. So how do you actually have a startup mentality? And from a startup, do you go on a scale up? And what that means is how quickly can you update your business processes that impact your customers and you're able to measure the impact? How quickly, because you're a legacy organization, you just can't switch off things and switch on things very, very quickly. So how easily or how are you able to integrate your best-in-class third-party solutions that wants to meet the agility and demands of the customer's needs? And last but not the least, to sustain yourself on that journey, change management process is fundamentally very important. Within the organization, how hard it is to change. Is the culture built around the future of constant change? So effectively, you're looking at change and you're looking at the culture within the organization adaptable to change. And then tipping it off is the talent gap. Do you have the right resources within the team? Do you have the right people? Who do you need to upskill and who do you need to cross-skill, basically take on this path for digital transformation? So before I close off, one last advice to provide you through experience of really how to get there. And I'll take a pause here to go through a notion to make you explain a key differentiator between what is defined as change and what is defined as transformation. And how do you actually differentiate between change and transformation? So the analogy that I want to give you today and for you to take away is a snake changing its skin is called change. It's just basically changing old clothes and getting new clothes. Whereas a larva modifying into a butterfly or morphing into a butterfly is called transformation. And why is that transformation? The present state of the larva and the future state of the butterfly is totally different in the anatomy and morphology and physiology. So when you're looking at transformation, the way you operate today and the way you're going to operate tomorrow from a people, process, data, technology, system, and capability perspective is fundamentally going to be different. And that exactly is what is transformation. If you're not doing it that way, you're actually doing change. So we need to be very, very careful of the solutions that we're trying to implement across people, data, technology, and system. Is that a change initiative or is that a transformation initiative? Because a transformation initiative is a different dialogue, it's a different conversation, it's a different skill set, and it's a different mindset. So again, just to recap, if you want to get ahead, what are the things that you should consider? The first one is people and training. If you don't have the right people in the organization, how do you actually get the talent from adjacent industries or digital disruptors? Again, I said startup, you want to get people from startup. If you think retail is relatively doing well, do you want to basically get people from banking from retail? And there are nuances and advantages and disadvantages of making that happen. You need to have an investment budget. You need to basically have a training roadmap for your people that are able to identify the mega trends that enable the tech of the future. You need to invest in power users. So that's around people and training. Then there has to be a change in the culture of the organization. We started off by saying that we are a product-led organization. For us to succeed in the future, we need to be a customer-led organization. Customer centricity should be within our genome. We should be looking up, if you're looking for banking, if you like to be a digital bank, you need to really embrace digital data-driven business model. How does this business model look like in the future? And what that means is, what's your risk-taking appetite and then fail fast approach. If you don't get it right, how do you basically want to get back? How do you have agile methodology? You have employee empowerment in your tech programs. What's your offense and defense mindset philosophy that you've got, and what's your end-to-end adoption? Those two together are more around people capability. For you to aim for the North Star, to get it right, you really need to have vendor support. As I said, if you want to achieve something, there's two parts. One is you can do it yourself. Second, you need to partner with organizations or vendors to basically take you to your North Star. You want to basically invest in a technology which is best of breed, or you want to invest in a technology which is all in one. How do you actually drive value from your investment? Do you work with your vendors to understand the vision and the roadmap? How does product adoption, product utilization, best practices, and after support look like? Are you working on that? A lot of organizations don't focus on that element, as a result of which they don't succeed. Then the last quadrant to talk about and consider is process and feature level adoption, and that can be classified, that's the tech part in terms of integration, configuration, and installation. And when I talk about processes, again, we started off by saying the whole idea about CX was moving from a technology lens to a process or a CX lens. And what the whole thing what we were talking about is process and workflows become the backbone of an organization. So if you don't really have the right processes in place, all your system capabilities actually fail. You need to identify processes that need to change with new technology and implementation. This is a big one. What is happening is we look at implementing new technology, but we still want to practice the previous processes that we had. We don't want to change, and that's very much related with the change culture that we've got. How much of straight through processing that we basically want to bring in? How much of RPA, robotic process automation? How much of straight? How do we basically get them without zero manual touch? And that basically allows to do a frictionless data movement across the different silos. So how does data move from one system to the other inside, not looking at the silos, but being frictionless? The challenge is that if you look at failure rate, organizations not investing in people training and cultural change account for about 29% failure in their digital transformation initiative. Organizations not focusing on integration, configuration, and installation of technology stack, and how do they actually merge their existing stack with the new stack, account for a massive 27% failure rate in their digital transformation. So for us to really succeed on the path of digital transformation, to really provide an exponential CX, looking from a customer's mindset, we really need to change the way we currently operate from a people and training perspective, from a cultural and change, from process, looking at feature level adoption, and then actually working with your vendors to get it right. So those were my thoughts today to take you through of how you basically bring about digital transformation, understand the natives of what exactly is digital, and how you can embrace that from a people, process, data, technology, and system. And hopefully that provided you some insights in terms of if you're aiming for the North Star, what the challenges are, and how do you actually mitigate and overcome those challenges. Thank you. I'll pause here and take some questions.
Satya, thank you very much. Excellent presentation. We appreciate that. I'm going to ask you to stop sharing the presentation so that the audience can see us both on screen. Perfect. Thank you very much for that presentation. For the audience, some terrific questions that have come through. I'm going to relay as many of them as possible to Satya here in the time that we have allotted. But keep asking them, because I will look for main themes and I will relay those themes to Satya. Satya, the first question is a very tactical question. Art Drake asked if you could go explain again the E and the P that you had before. What's on the E and what's on the P that you mentioned early on? Because he was taking notes, but he missed some of the items. So if you could identify what's in the E, what's in the P for him.
Sure. So in the P, you've got product, price, place, and promotion, which is very, very traditional marketing.
Yeah.
On the E, it's all about the experience, exclusivity, emotions, and engagement.
Perfect. That's excellent. That's a very very interesting insight and a great way that you frame the different approach here. We have a question from coming in here from, let me scroll to the right level here. You know, in a bank like Citi, where you have, it's such a large organization with so many different branches and parts of the business itself, how do you ensure that there is a unified approach, that there is communication, collaboration about how you're going to market and how you're approaching your customers, on a global scale? How is that done?
That's a good question. I guess a lot of organizations struggle, and the reason why organizations struggle is because they all work on product silos. So what happens is that the product manager thinks about their product, and the way they think about is that I've got a budget. I've got to target a customer. I've got to meet a KPI, and they come up with a marketing idea and a communication stream. I want to talk to this customer through an email, and they blast it out through the way. And everyone does that in a silo. So what happens from a customer perspective is that I don't know if the credit card product manager is targeting me as a customer, and the retail guy from wealth manager is also targeting me as a customer. And on a given day, I can receive two communications from the organization, and the organization is not aware that they're talking to the same customer. So how do you optimize that, and how do you orchestrate that? And basically, when you look at competing campaigns, so if I'm actually at a point of threat, which means that I'm a customer who basically has made a complaint, or I'm not happy with the organization, should I be quarantined? How do you manage that? So how do you actually manage competing campaigns going out? How do you ensure you have contact policy and contact rules in place, which means that I don't want to send out too many communications on a given day to a customer, and manage that. So you need to look at prioritization, you need to look at optimization, and that could be done by a system-based capability or a rule-based capability to drive that.
Very well, Satya. One additional question we have is related to how do you see in banking, who are the customers, if there is a segment of customers that's maybe leading the charge, if you will, that they are pushing the envelope for the development of these approaches that you described? Is it being driven by the customer, by the consumer customers, the business customers, or the investment banking customers? Is there a specific segment that's driving the charge?
It's actually the consumers, the consumer segment in the B2C. And again, if you look at the demographic that is actually trying to drive a lot of that is basically Generation Z. And Generation Z, I guess, is people that were born after the millennials, is 1996 onwards. So they would be around the early 20s now, because they are the disruptors. They have actually embraced digital very well. So when they were born, they had an iPad or a smartphone in their hand already, so as a result of which they are leading the charge in digital revolution, and they are basically forcing customers to really look at it. And if you look at and how that's actually been talked about is that because they are digital natives, they don't want to do physical banking, or they don't want to have a physical interaction. They are forcing organizations to take this digital pathway.
Very good, very good. Gabriela Pereira says, amazing presentation, thank you. What would you say has been the biggest challenge you've faced in transformation from the people point of view?
It's people's ability to change. I guess there's two ways of looking at it. It's not that people don't want to change, but the fear of failure. So these transformations they require a lot of technology investment. They require a lot of brain power investment, and if sometimes they don't realize, and the time to basically realize the investment, the value of the investment could be from 12 months to 24 months. So from a people perspective, the fear of failure, and people start thinking, if I try to do this and if it fails, what happens? And they don't want to invest their time. So I guess that's the biggest challenge I see in people's, it's the mindset. So people really need to have a growth mindset. People need to really start embracing failure and fail fast and come back and rebound. So if you have that mentality and that approach, I think you should be able to succeed.
And a follow-up question from Mesbah Haki is that asking about how Citi is managing this global transformation at a local and regional customer experience level. At what point do you go from a global experience to a more, customized local or regional experience, and how do you make that happen?
So from a Citi perspective, I think what they try to do is that if you're a Citi customer globally, so if you have a similar experience in every country that you go. So for example, we have Citi Wealth Management in Australia recently been launched. So if you are the high-end customer and you're basically interacting at a regional level, say in Hong Kong and Singapore, and you walk into a Citi branch, you'll feel the look and feel is exactly going to be the same as you find the Australian office. And that is, when you look at that experience and when you talk about exclusivity and consistent experience, so that's what organization needs to take and embrace, that you should be able to provide that experience consistently across not only all channels, all touch points, and also across all geographical locations.
That's excellent. Tell me a little bit more, if you could, just about how do you customize that locally? Is there an example that you can provide, maybe in Australia, compared to how is it different in Australia from how do you do in Brazil or the United States? Is there some examples on that?
Yeah, so one very good example is that from a Citi perspective in Australia, we are a white label partner for about 9 different brands. So if you look at Citi Singapore, for example, or Citi Hong Kong, they would actually only be marketing Citi credit cards, whereas in Australia you got the airlines company. For example, Qantas, we are a white label partner for Qantas, for Coles, for Virgin, for Kogan. So although you look at the card being Kogan, the white label partner behind the scenes is Citi. So that's how we, from a credit card market perspective, we're not only for Citi, but we are also a white label for other organizations, and we basically manage the card business for them.
Very good. That's a great example. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to ask one final question here. There is this concept today of liquid customer expectations. And can you talk a little bit more about that, what these liquid customer expectations are, and how you're adapting to this, to do what seems like very fast changing preferences?
Absolutely. So again, we talked about the P's and the E's. So the liquid customer expectation basically just revolves around the E's in terms of the experience. And what that means is that, let's take ourselves backward 20 years ago. If you walk into a banking organization, the experience that you receive in that banking organization is what you basically want to whether it's good or bad, you expect that or that type of an experience in every bank that you walk in. Now, if you look at what Netflix is trying to do, what Amazon is trying to do, what Uber is trying to do, they're basically providing you exponential experience. It's world class. So what that means, the liquid customer expectation means, is that now, and again with the ongrowth of the the Generation Z, that experience that Netflix, Uber, and Amazon are providing, customers are expecting every organization that they actually interact with provides a similar type of experience. So it's not actually on verticals and silos. It's basically now moving across verticals. So in hospitality, if I get a 5-star treatment, I walk into my telco, I walk into my bank, I want that 5-star treatment. I want people to know me by my name, address my needs, so they, they know me, reach me, and deliver that experience. So don't ask me a question you've already collected a lot of data about me. You know a lot about me. So don't ask the repetitive questions. Have informed decision, have informed conversation before they actually come up. So that's what exactly liquid customer expectation is all about.
Satya, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. I know it's a different time there in Sydney right now, so thanks for being with us. Tremendous insights, great delivery. On behalf of over 2,000 global participants, it's a real honor and privilege to have you here from Sydney, Australia to the world. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is leader for transformation at Citibank, Satya Upadhyaya, and what a pleasure to have you with us, Satya. For those of you who may be a little confused, because you look at the agenda and we had Doha Bank coming in first, and then we would have Citibank second. We had to flip-flop that because with global schedules that we're dealing with, it was more convenient to have Satya go first with Citibank. And now at the top of the hour, we're going to bring a leader for transformation at Doha Bank. And directly from Doha, we'll have Diraj Aluwalia with us. He's the Executive Vice President of Digital Transformation for Doha Bank. And he's going to be joining us to discuss digital transformation and operational excellence in financial services and banking. So again, another world-class expert and practitioner sharing what's happening in the financial services industry from a global perspective. So we're going to meet you back at the top of the hour, closing the session right now. If you'd like to fill out a survey and provide any feedback, there's a little pop-up that comes up with a survey. You can always do that after every session. And you have provided terrific questions. I was only able to get to most of them, but not all of them. So keep asking the questions. This interaction is incredibly important so that you get the most value out of the sessions with our world-class experts. Now you can also always go and LinkedIn under my name, Jose Perez, and ask questions there as well. We'll provide updates at the end of the day on what today was all about. And that's another way you can interact post-conference. So for now, closing this session, I'll see you back at the top of the hour.